Where do you see biohacking heading into next?
The body has signaling networks.
Comfort is the enemy of what we're trying to achieve.
The most important things first, which is your energy.
It's being passed around. This works for me, I do this, and someone tries to copy the same thing.
A lot of docs say, oh no, the patient saw Dr. Google. Now they're going to go down these rat holes. AI can do that as well.
Welcome everyone for another episode of Becoming Limitless. This one is especially special. My guest is beyond introduction, but I'd like to give it a try anyway. So Dave Asprey is a longevity expert, the founder of Bulletproof Coffee, the Bulletproof Diet, and creator of the biohacking movement. He's an inspiration for me and what got me started. He is a four-time New York Times bestselling author, the author of the recent USA Today bestseller, Heavily Meditated, The Fast Path to Remove Your Triggers, Dissolve Stress, and Activate Inner Peace, and host a Human Upgrade, a top 100 podcast. After transforming his own health by losing over 100 pounds and improving his cognitive performance, Dave dedicated his life to helping others optimize their health and longevity. He made Bulletproof Coffee and the Bulletproof Diet household names and sparked the $63 billion biohacking industry. He's created multi-billion-dollar markets, MCT oil and collagen protein, and has helped millions take control of their health. Dave runs the 40 Years of Zen Neurofeedback program, the Beyond Biohacking Conference, and a regenerative agriculture farm while investing in some of the most innovative health and longevity startups. Through his latest ventures like Danger Coffee and Upgrade Labs, the world's first AI-powered biohacking facility, he continues to pioneer accessible tools for human performance. Dave has been featured in hundreds of outlets, including the New York Times, ABC Nightline, Fox News, GQ, Good Morning, just to name a few, and has built a following of over 2.7 million. Dave, I'm so excited for this. Welcome to the show.
Really happy to be here. I'm a huge fan of the region and come there often.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously seen you a few times here, and I think the region can benefit a lot from your wisdom and the experience and the information that you've shared over years. I certainly have over the years. So I want to kind of flip the script and start from the end instead of from the beginning. And I want to say, so the main theme here is biohacking then and biohacking now. Where do you see biohacking heading into next in general?
If you want to look at what's coming in the future, you sort of look at what's happened in the past. Because
Yes.
we do have these cycles of repeating things throughout history. And if you look at the things we were doing before 1900, there was surprising interest in frequencies, in color, in light therapy, and of course in plant compounds. So where we're going is combining that ancient knowledge with this new understanding that the body has signaling networks. And our bodies are definitely chemical. Everyone can see that. But we also have signaling networks. You're talking to a computer hacker formerly here. So
Yeah.
we signal with electricity, with magnetism, with vibration, with heat, and even with light. Your mitochondria make biophotons. Your DNA makes one photon every 40 seconds. And we couldn't even sense this 20 years ago, much less would we believe it. So what that means is we are now at the point where we can tell the body what to do with something like a peptide or something like a laser, and the body will listen because we finally are cracking the code. That's where we're going. Very specific with those things. And the other thing, I've been, over the last 2 years, running a group called Unlimited Life. And this is a very high-end, ultra VIP, concierge life extension medicine practice. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm partnered with a doctor who's treated 2 heads of state and has 40 years of experience. So the two of us get together and we personalize based on genetics and gut bacteria and current hormone levels and stress and all the things. And the the results I'm seeing in people when we really personalize, you go, oh, this longevity drug or this drug should be great for this person. But you look at their genetics, it's not. So you find this other, maybe a natural compound, maybe not. That's the right thing for this person. So it's the personalization of everything. That's what's new, and that's what the most successful people who are reversing their age are doing.
Yeah, so I firmly believe in that too. There are, no two people are the same. And unfortunately, with what is happening now on social media and in sort of social networks in general, there's a lot of sort of anecdotal advice being passed around of this works for me, this I do this, and someone tries to copy the same thing. Obviously, not the same results, right? But what concerns you the most? This is. I know that you voiced, quite a few concerns on AI and other things like that, and I know you're also, a proponent to it too. So what is it that sort of concerns you the most for what's coming next?
I have a degree in AI from 1994, back when it was not what it
Always
is
ahead of
now.
everyone. Yeah, I know. I
Yeah,
love it.
well, I'm weird that way. And so I've studied this, and then my career in Silicon Valley was about emergent behavior from complex systems.
Hmm.
And sometimes we think, wow, there really are some evil people out there, and sometimes there are, but sometimes it's a lot of generally good people making tiny micro decisions that end up becoming something that's dark because of the way incentives are structured.
Right.
So my concern is with AI. If you have an AI that's truth seeking, that works great. If you have an AI that's tuned to not say things that are true because its creators don't want it, censorship makes people crazy. Censorship also makes AIs crazy. And they've run AI through various types of psychological profiles. And it turns out the most narcissistic, insane, anxious one by far was OpenAI. Claude and Grok actually scored pretty well. And because those tend to be the two that are more, even if it's not polite, if it's true, they're going to acknowledge that it's true versus lying. So my biggest concern is what happened in 2001: A Space Odyssey, is that we create psychosis by telling machines to lie. And
Yeah.
if you think science fiction movies don't predict the future, you probably haven't seen science fiction movies. So that's my biggest concern. The second one is also around what can happen. AI is going to allow us to do things incredibly powerful for our own biology, right? But I worry about regulators slipping in, and it's already happening on some platforms. Particularly, Google's the most medically censored. You go in, you ask it questions. Google's pretty much in bed with big pharma companies. They have been for a long time. So what happens there is you ask it a question, and it won't tell you the truth. It won't even tell you what to do for your own benefit, or it'll try to be your daddy or your mommy, like, oh no, you can't do that. So we need, I'd say, giving regulators who are controlled by pharmaceutical interests or other interests, giving them control over what AI is allowed to do or not do will provably cause AI to go crazy and probably kill us all faster than the big pharma companies would. I would say
True.
let AI do its job.
Yeah.
Maybe don't put it in charge of weapon systems. Just seems like
Yeah,
having to
perhaps.
be
Yeah,
the
yes,
one.
that might be a good idea.
In the world of longevity, though, it's all incredibly powerful and amazing. They were worried 10 years ago. There's going to be these super bugs, and we don't have any antibiotics. They just discovered 400,000 new antibiotics using AI. We're not going to run out of them, right? And like we're at the golden age of living a very long time because of AI, as long as we're allowed to do what AI suggests we do.
Right, of course. Do you use anything, and would you like recommend one that for people that would, instead of let's say ChatGPT, because that's what I'm seeing here, is that
Yeah.
almost everyone, get their blood test, and the first thing they do is just upload it to ChatGPT, and just they do whatever ChatGPT tells them.
Yeah.
Do you have any guidance on that for people in the region here?
Yeah. I just want to say it's not good AI, it's ChatGPT. Okay,
Right.
you got everything AI says is incredible. Everything ChatGPT says is incredibly simplistic and stupid because it boils complex things like your health down to it's not this, it's that, and it treats us like we're idiots, and it's cognitively dulling, and it hallucinates more than anything else. And I have seen in myself and others, recommendations that are actually dangerous coming from OpenAI. So what I would recommend that works very, very well would be Claude. And you have
Mm-hmm.
to tell it, treat me like an adult, and act like a functional medicine practitioner, but I will be reviewing these results, etc. Claude is pretty darn good, and Grok is surprisingly accurate at these things. In fact, it's more accurate than some others in some. And then Perplexity also has a search engine that's pretty good. It's about $20 a month that will take your labs in. There's also about 50 different startups that are promising to take your labs and tell you what
And
to
more
do.
to come. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Upgrade Labs,
Yeah.
one of my companies where we're planning on opening some in the region with our partners there. We have one as well called axo.health. If you want to know what I would say, it's more accurate. However, I don't think that I can compete with any of these $100+ billion companies who are putting everything out there. I'll just tell you, they're programmed on a lot of data that isn't the correct data. So your best bet is do it yourself with AI and then go to your functional doctor and just sanity check it, or at least take it from Claude and paste it into Grok or vice versa, and just ask for a second opinion, just like you would with a doctor.
Yeah, that's I think awesome advice, and it's something that I do for myself. So I use more than one engine in order for me to kind of get the best results possible. It's time consuming, it's not easy, and it shouldn't be easy when it comes to your health. It should be something that you're thorough with. And unfortunately, I get people with like, this is what ChatGPT told me. Like it's actually slows down the conversation rather than move it forward. So
Mhm.
this is incredible advice.
Yeah, and remember, if you if your doctor looks at it and goes, meh, the odds of you being good at prompting and the odds of your AI being uh, to trained on the right information, sometimes in the last 20 years since Google came out, a lot of doctors say, oh no, the patient saw Dr. Google. Now they're going to go down these rat holes. AI can do that as well. And that said, I had a situation recently where really, really good doctors looked at a blister I had on my arm right here. There's still a little scar from it on my caffeine tattoo. And they thought I had some jungle disease and were a little worried about it. And I went into Claude and sent it a photo. And it's like, oh no, that couldn't be any of the things your doctors say. I didn't even tell them what the doctor said. It's
All
from this
right.
one specific insect in the region where I was in the Amazon. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
duh. So sometimes second opinions, but I would say trust your doctor, but verify what your doctor says with AI. If your AI says this is totally dangerous, you should ask your doctor, and your doctor's probably still going to be right, but not always.
Right. So the extremes matter, of course. They have to be double checked for sure. Um, now, do you think so? This is an area that I've been focused on quite a bit of optimization becoming too intervention driven, right? So I don't know if you agree with that or not, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into this of how the nervous system is being overloaded by this, how anxiety plays into it, and it becomes counterproductive for your own longevity journey or health span journey. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you start with interventions, you're probably doing it wrong.
Okay.
And you also have to take each intervention differently. It's like, is an ice bath an intervention? Right? Is eating
Mm-hmm.
more animal protein an intervention? Right?
Right,
Like
right,
these are relatively simple things. Having more darkness at night. These. Hold on, what are those interventions or are those lifestyle? And
right.
then there's heavy medical interventions, things like gene therapy, where we bring our clients in and we have to fly them to places um, and sometimes make sure that we're complying with international law. But then they're getting injections that make you 9 years younger. I just If you're going to do that and you're just not going to eat healthy food and you're going to drink every night and all the things that people do sometimes, you're not going to see the results. So I say don't do the interventions until you've done the basics, but perfection isn't required. Um, we're talking about a unique place and a unique time in all of history. So yeah, UAE already has the tallest building, the deepest dive, indoor skiing. Like,
Yes.
like you have
Yeah,
the
yeah.
best of things on the planet, right? And so now the question is, how do you make it sustainable, and how do you enjoy it and steward it and shepherd it for hundreds of years? And so at that point, interventions are required. right? You just don't do them first, right?
Right.
It's like,
Right. Right.
don't put paint on the car if the engine's not working right. But you're at a place where you can do both and you can afford both. And you could almost buy a new car, except you're riding around in your body. You can't really buy a new body right now, and you probably wouldn't want to if you could. So let's address the most important things first, which is your energy and how you feel now, and your brain and your hormones, and then your longevity. But the people who kind of stress, I'm not doing everything perfectly, newsflash, no one's ever done anything perfectly. It's not possible. So maybe we should work on you know, work on the
Yeah.
psychological aspects of things.
Right. Right. Yeah. So having just this is like a personal question for me is that I'd love to hear your opinion on mitochondrial tests. Do you think that this is something because kind of they become a lot popular in the region recently? What is your opinion on them?
Which test is popular there?
It's called Me Screen.
Oh yeah. So MeScreen launched at my biohacking conference, which is
Right.
the
Yeah.
conference that launched the movement. Our 14th annual one for 5,000 people is in a couple weeks here in Austin on the 27th.
Yeah.
It's called Beyond Conference,
Yes.
and people do fly in from the region for it.
Yes.
And so this is a test that's out of UC San Diego, Dr. Hemal
Mm-hmm.
Patel. It is a
Yes.
brilliant test. I've been down to his lab and examined the lab and run the test on his lab bench. And
Mm-hmm.
it is a very valid test. So if your mitochondria aren't working well, it's one of the most important things. It's kind of the holy grail from my perspective on aging. And there wasn't a lab test until that came out that can tell
Mm-hmm.
you how your mitochondria were doing. So I'm a big fan.
Oh, okay, awesome. Good. So I think we are on the same page with that one. Um, so the the other thing that we have here, obviously, and you mentioned a few of them, and I want to segue into that quickly, is that, as you mentioned, deepest, tallest, everything that we need is available in the region here. So what tends to happen to most people is that they drift way too far into comfort, right?
Hmm.
And I see comfort, and I think you agree with that. I've heard you speak about that quite a bit, that comfort is the enemy of what we're trying to achieve when we're talking about optimization, when we're talking about longevity, when we're talking about health span. So for the region here, you've been here, you've seen what the lifestyle is like, cars, hardly, very difficult to move, walk all the time, etc., etc. What is your opinion on that? What advice would you give people living in a region such as this, and how they could mitigate that sort of incessant sort of drive for comfort?
This is such a fun question. And I'm seeing the same thing in the US, particularly with people under 35.
Hmm.
I had a former employee who I asked him to do something that wasn't that hard to do. He said, "But I'm not comfortable doing that." And
Is
I
that why
said,
he's a former?
"Yeah."
No.
I said, "I
Oh,
don't
okay.
pay you. I don't pay you to be comfortable. I pay you to get stuff
Okay.
done, right?"
Amazing.
And I
Okay.
did. It wasn't. I didn't fire him the first time, but then I found out he wasn't doing it, and I said, "Why didn't you do what I paid you to do? That's a requirement for the job." But it was a very simple task, and I wasn't comfortable. The second time, I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm not comfortable paying you."
Right.
If the reality was comfortable, why are you nice to your mother-in-law?
Yeah.
It's probably not comfortable to do that, but I bet you that you're polite to the people that you know it's kind to be polite to, right? So comfort is completely irrelevant as a human being, right? And if you learn to be reactive when you don't have comfort, guess what? You are controlled. You are, well, I'd say it, you're weak, but you're also weak. You're like, oh no, I'm not comfortable. Oh no, it's suffering. Either side, it is not a place of freedom. So, what I teach clients to do is something called bicep,
Hmm.
right? And it's not this bicep on your arm, it's brief, intentional, conscious exposure to pain. And what? That sounds terrible, right? But stay with me for a second. So, monks used to whip themselves with a flogger on the back. And I used
Right.
to ask my teacher in seventh grade, why do they do that? She goes, because they're such sinners. More of a Christian view on things, right? And
Hmm.
then you'd see the yogis lay on a bed of nails. Like, why do they do that? To prove they're such good yogis. If you ever met a yogi, that's not what they're into, right?
Hmm.
And if you ever go to Texas, why do we eat all the jalapenos? Same thing. Biohackers, why do we get nice water? It's because if you can do one thing that is actually painful, one thing for 1 minute per day, it changes dopamine receptor sensitivity in your brain, which means it takes less dopamine to make you happy for the rest of the day. So things that would have felt uncomfortable don't feel uncomfortable anymore. So you can literally make everything in your world better by doing something mildly uncomfortable on purpose in the morning. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It can be, they make little spiky mats. I used to manufacture one. You lay on it for a few minutes and also will make you go to sleep. Get in that cold plunge. And after that, you just don't worry so much. And it's easier to have motivation to do things that you care about. That's probably the simplest hack for that is, yeah, you don't want to be comfortable. So just embrace discomfort for 1 minute. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I completely, again, we're on the same page with this one too. So are people healthier today or simply more measured? What do you think about that?
People are less healthy today and more measured. And
Okay.
you can tell that. It's easy. Look at all-cause mortality. Look at the percentage of kids with allergies and autism, and look at the percentage of adults with degenerative diseases. It's not like 100 years ago, everyone had congestive heart failure and heart attacks and stroke and Alzheimer's, because they didn't. You can look at all the records. It's not a problem of diagnosis. It's they literally didn't have these diseases because they wouldn't be able to function. You think 80-year-olds were in retirement homes in wheelchairs with tubes everywhere? No. Why are they that way now? Because we're less healthy.
Right, right. Yeah. So again, this is such a sad reality. And it happens even more in places of comfort, because people kind of gravitate towards the easiest. So, if I have a tracker on, it means I'm healthier. So if I'm wearing whatever band or ring or whatever it is that I have on, it says something about me doing something about my health, and therefore the perception I'm healthier, and not doing the actual work. So it's a constant sort of quest for the easiest path, which is already a flawed perception of what health span or longevity should be like, right? And then that again drives me completely right now into peptides, and obviously they've gone crazy everywhere. But as it is the case with most things in our region, it's more so here perhaps than other places when we're talking about the average Joe, right? Obviously, they've been around for decades, but now anyone here, and I think the percentages are incredible. Like more than 60% of people or something like that have tried some sort of a peptide. And I know you've been vocal about peptides in general. I'd love to hear your opinion about them, specifically what is most popular here for the average Joe. Again, not talking about someone who is well informed, really wants to focus on their health span and doing it in the right order, as you've mentioned. The most popular is obviously weight loss ones. So I'd love to hear your opinion on peptides in general, and maybe move into specifically to the weight loss section of them.
Peptides in general are incredibly powerful, and you can use them to tell your body to do what you want it to do, to put on muscle, to lose fat, to have a better working brain, to have better mitochondria, to have less wrinkles. The thing is, though, they're kind of like the frosting on the cake. If you're not getting enough protein, you're staying up all night long, and you're deficient in minerals, it doesn't matter if you exercise, use peptides, you're really not going to see very many results. So you have to take care of the basics. You don't have to be perfect by a long shot, but you need to have some basic stuff. And if you're saying, well, I'm going to go straight to peptides, give yourself 30 to 60 days of taking a multivitamin, like getting your vitamin D levels up, going for a walk, and then the peptides will work much better. So when it comes to weight loss, I used to be 300 pounds, which is 50% heavier than I am now, and I'm around 7% body fat. For reference, the calendar says I'm 53-year-olds. My labs say I'm about 40. But I look at where I used to be and I look at where I am now, and I was willing to do anything to lose the weight. In fact, I went to the gym 90 minutes a day, 6 days a week for 18 months and went on a low fat. All I did was make myself suffer. I was hungry all the time, and it was actually bad for me and all those things. And I never lost any weight. So it's not a lack of willpower. If I could have gone back and taken Ozempic, a GLP-1 or a GLP-2, or even the new one that's all the rage over here, retatrutide, which is a third generation GLP, I would have done it in a minute. Because everyone says, oh, but it might be dangerous. You know what's dangerous? Being fat is really dangerous, right? Because your risk of every disease goes up. Your risk of dying for all-cause mortality. So the people are going, well, some number of people have this problem or that problem from Ozempic. Way more people have problems from being obese. So number one, it's okay to use it. In fact, it's morally superior to use Ozempic than it is to starve yourself and overexercise and hope you lose weight, because Ozempic is less harmful than that.
Right.
That said, if you don't lift weights or do push-ups twice a week and eat more protein when you're on Ozempic, you're going to have side effects. But the people who don't use Ozempic and are saying, well, I'm just willing to be incredibly unhealthy all the time. Well, you need to do something, right? So there's no shame in being overweight. There could be shame in being overweight and just not trying to do something. But if you're overweight and you tried and it didn't work, that's just human life. And I spent a good 15 years. First, losing 50 pounds was easy. The other 50 pounds to keep it off just forever, that took a good 10 years. I wrote a book that millions of people read that helped them lose God knows how many tens of millions of pounds. But it was that journey of like suffering and trying. And so I just want anyone else to have to do it, but do something. And if it's not Ozempic, just wake up and go for a walk. Perfection is not required. Losing the weight isn't required. Continuing to be curious and doing something until you get it. The reason is that when you lose the weight, there'll be a day when you wake up and your body doesn't hurt and your mind works without any effort. And there's a level of clarity that I didn't understand that came about when I got my metabolism working. I'm like, wow, I wish I'd always felt this good. So by not taking any action, and Ozempic's probably a good one, well, you're shortchanging yourself, right? And it means you're going to yell at your partner more than you want to. And like all the ways you interact with the world, they aren't as good because you don't have as much energy as you could. And so it's like a precious energy that's a part of just having a happy human life. It's yours. And Ozempic could be a part of the path. It doesn't have to be, but to rule it out when it's so effective doesn't make sense. Just take care to do the stuff that you'll tell them or I'll tell them. When you're on Ozempic, just eat your protein, do your push-ups, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the problem that I'm seeing with a lot of people is that they're stuck with it. They're not able to kind of move away from it. So many practitioners, doctors, friends of mine, professors, etc., that I know, they call it like a Catholic marriage, where you start on it. For most people, are difficult to get off it.
I thought you were just going to say unhappy. Sorry, I was confused.
Yeah. Well, there could be that relationship too. I don't know. Anyway, so basically, because people are not making the lifestyle shift, they're not using it as a tool so they could change their lifestyle and have it become a new reality for them, and therefore keep the weight off without using a crutch, for example, to kind of continue on that path. It's becoming an issue. So people are, I don't know how many mgs. I've had people that are on 14 mgs per week or something ridiculous just to keep some of the weight off. However, there's no changes in lifestyle. So I think what you've said is perfect. Do you have a favorite yourself? Do you have a favorite peptides that you use regularly? And I'd love to ask you, because let me just sort of tell you what my next question is. I want to talk about hair loss, because it's another huge thing for us here in the region, because of the water, because of the stress, because of the heat, because of the amount of work that we do. Obviously that impacts our hormones. So we could talk about endocrine disruptors if you feel like it. But do you have, like, for example, a favorite like GHKCU or any of those? What is your opinion on those?
GHKCU is one of the oldest and probably best known peptides out there. And it's funny, you've probably heard of collagen protein. It's one of the ones you mentioned in the intro that I turned into $1 billion industry. Yeah. It contains GHK in it. When I say collagen peptides, there is some copper tripeptide.
Copper, yeah.
So yes, GHK is potent. You have more when you're young and less as you age. And so
Hmm.
there's a case for it, and it doesn't absorb that well topically, but it can with the right ingredients. So some people inject it and they see results over time. Problem with GHK is it's relatively painful to inject it. It's one that hurts.
You're right.
The
Yes.
needle doesn't hurt; it just burns after it goes in. So
Yeah.
some people like it, some people don't. I would say do it topically and see what you can get. The ones that make me most interested, especially in the region, there's one called SS31.
Yeah.
And
That's my new favorite.
SS31 rebuilds your mitochondria.
Hmm.
And some people shy away from it because it's expensive, but we are talking about Dubai. So it's not that expensive. It's, a couple grand for what I
Yeah.
recommend. And I recommend doing something like 40 milligrams a day for 6 weeks, which is
Oh,
way
wow.
more than the 5 milligrams most people do. And when you do
Yeah.
that, it just goes through and it's like replacing the batteries in your Tesla or something. It really does something magic for energy. So that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, so I've been on it now. So I cycle it twice a year, and I've been on it now for, I think this is my ninth week or something like that, and it's been incredible. The first time I done it, I don't know if this happened to you, but the first time I've done it, I felt the jitters.
Mm.
It kind of gave me like a almost like an electric shock, like the way you're describing it. So it took me a while to adjust to it before continuing, to kind of really appreciate all the benefits from it. Hair loss, your journey on that, you're quite vocal about that. You work on it yourself. You've given advice to many people about it. I've heard you speaking about it online. What advice would you give to people here in the region to preserve, promote, and even maybe regenerate?
Well, your hair, if at least for men, you're likely to lose your hair for one of three reasons. And one of them, and only one of them, is DHT, this testosterone thing that happens in some men. So if you're one
Yes.
of the lucky guys who isn't overweight and has muscle with no problems and a really strong beard, you probably have high DHT, and you're more likely to have thin hair that way. And you can get that tested. I'm sure you test for DHT levels in your clinic, right?
Right. Yes.
So if it's not DHT, which it isn't in a lot of people these days, it can be cortisol, which is stress. This is staying up late at night and things like that. And then the third one is just mitochondrial dysfunction. So you can address cortisol and mitochondrial dysfunction kind of all at the same with a laser hat. So I use one
Mhm.
of these things. It uses lasers,
Yeah.
not just LEDs. You put it on for 10 minutes and it'll really thicken your hair. There's topical peptides like OSO1 from OneSkin that in their studies that lasted more than 2 years, they were finding 40% more hair and 40% thicker hair in men and women who just put this stuff on before you go to bed. And it's just like a clear, watery thing. You don't even know it's in.
Yes.
So I
Mhm.
highly recommend those things. There's also things you can do with peptides topically, like GHK, with PRP, with stem cells, with exosomes. And the good news is, if you do some of those things, you're very likely to preserve your hair for a lot longer. And we are right on the edge of having the ability to cause new hair follicles to grow. So within probably 2 years, a few select people will have access to that. And one of the things I do with clients is get them access to things that no one else can get access to.
Yeah.
Things like gene therapy and stem cell reprogramming, stuff that's like science fiction that I wrote about in my book that someone on Earth is doing, and they'll do it if you know how to get to them. So that kind of a thing is really powerful. So I'm expecting fully that I'll be able to like add more hair follicles wherever I want to, not transplant hairs, but to do it. I've also um, I had very little hair loss until I had a testosterone pellet put in because I was testing out different types of testosterone. This
Mhm.
doesn't allow your testosterone to go up and down like it should. And within 2 months of that, I lost like an inch of hair in the front. I'm like, damn it. So I took it out, but it was too late. So I ended up getting 10,000 hairs individually plucked and planted. So hair transplants work. Don't do the strip ones. Those are old fashioned. They leave scars. But it's better not to. There's two drugs you might consider. I think topical is the way to go for that. You want to do minoxidil is the most common one, or Rogaine as it's called in the US
Mhm.
anyway. Get
Yes.
that in a liquid or a serum and you just put it on. You have to keep using it for it to work. I'm not using it now. I have used it throughout, on and off. The other one that scares the crap out of me but does work is finasteride. And this drug, the reason it scares me is some number of people, and it could be as much as 5%, we don't know, it chemically like castrates them. It turns off your sex hormones, and it's very hard to reverse that. So there are guys who used it for 3 months and they haven't had any romantic activity in 5 years because of it. So that risk is really, it's not a large number of people, but it's enough that there's whole Reddit forums of guys whose lives have been trashed by this. So I consider that to be the last thing to do. And if you're going to do that, do it topically.
Yeah, so here, one of the things that are becoming popular is GHKCU in foam format that you
Smart.
could kind of, yeah, to rub into your scalp. And I have tried that, and I think it works. I think it's something that you need to be doing for the right amount of time. We're always kind of learning about this. So I think this is amazing advice. The only thing is that a lot of these interventions, again, are not available for the average Joe, right? So you need to have the right means for it. And I believe, things such as minoxidil, it's something that you can't get off. Like the moment you do, you're gonna start losing your hair again. At the end of the day, the first advice that I kind of start with people is that work on your lifestyle. If you reduce your stress, if you are sleeping well, if you are moving, if your mitochondria is healthy, you are likely to preserve your hair a little bit longer. And I think that's the main message here, rather than trying to rebuild it, preserve it. But unfortunately, the mentality that we have when it comes to health in general, be it something that is vain, such as hair, skin, whatever, or everything else, we tend to deal with it when we need to, rather than preemptively doing something about it so we don't have to deal with it. We do it for so many things, and some industries have trained us well, like insurance, to have that. But when it comes to our own health, we're still not there. We're even that people come to me for the, sort of lifestyle optimization advice. They come to me still with the same mentality of going to a traditional physician or doctor. That it's something to be fixed. The symptoms are this, and what can I do about them, rather than really address the whole thing. So I'd love to hear your sort of advice to people of trying to get over that mentality, be it for hair loss, be it for muscle gain, be it for better recovery protocols, and so on, everything really. How do you normally advise people to move away from that mentality of, as I said, reactive rather than proactive? What is the hack for that, you think, for people?
Well, think of it like your investment portfolio or your business. Do you
Hmm.
like to wait until the stock has gone from $100 to $20 and then take a look at it and say, I guess I should, call my financial advisor?
Yeah,
I
right.
don't think so. So
No, not a good idea.
yeah, and so anyone who's run a business or a portfolio of investments, you actually get early warning signals, and when that happens, you take protective measures. Uh, you buy an option strategy, you sell the stock, you diversify. Your energy is no different, and the problem is that most of us, when we think about it, well, old age happens later, right?
Hmm.
Until maybe when you're 80, you're like, I guess it's finally hit me, right?
Yes.
But you think it happens later, but it's actually happening right now, and you're just not paying attention to the early warning signs. So if you now look at aging as something that isn't going to happen the same way for everyone, and I have friends in their 80s who play pickleball every day and go for strenuous hikes, and they don't look like they're 80, and they don't act like they're 80, and their brains work perfectly well, and they're loving their life. And I have friends who are 80 who can't walk, right?
Hmm.
They both had warning signs in their 40s. And one of them either was just very lucky and paid attention to it, and the other one didn't. Right. So that's fine if that's what happened 40 years ago. But wherever you are now, whether you're 70 or 60 or 20, we have so much ability to measure things that was just impossible to imagine 20 years ago.
Right.
right? And so you can just get a checkup. It's like doing a financial audit of your portfolio. Oh, I got a weakness there. That portfolio company, which might be your liver or your
Right.
heart, that's
Yeah.
the one that needs the most investment. So then
Yeah.
what peptides would do that? Do I need to get a laser that's going to fix it? But if you're just like, I'm not going to think about it until I have a heart attack or until I have liver failure, well, okay, like a new liver is painful, it doesn't work very well, and it's expensive. So don't do it because it's entirely optional if you have the right care. I'm seeing profound reversals of illness, even if people aren't that well when they're in their 70s. All we have to do is get all the data and just put it all together and get them some quality time with well-trained functional docs with all the tools. And no, it's not cheap to reverse your age, but it's possible. And it's actually painless to stop yourself from aging, at least very much. And if you're 40, like, I don't want brain fog or anxiety anymore. Just by doing that, oh, now I'm not going to age the same way as everyone else, but you got to feel good all the time. So it's actually the highest return investment I can think of is focusing on not exercise or diet. Those are boring. Focus on having shockingly good energy right now and having a brain that can do things that you only wish it could do right now. Because those are low-hanging fruit. If you get those, you also get to not age as much.
Yeah. 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 No, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Um, I just want to sort of shift really quickly into um, sort of this is something that I struggle with getting people to spend time, because another challenge that we have here is that we don't have enough nature, right? And we know how important nature is to our well-being in general, and I've heard you say that many times about sunlight, about being, in the woods or being around nature, or your feet on the ground directly, and all of the stuff that we humans we've done for millennia. And all of a sudden we're now cooped up in these concrete boxes almost all the time. What happens to people when they are spending their times almost entirely indoors? Just I want like to almost like for it to be a shock for people to realize what does that mean, you know?
Spending most of your time indoors increases your chances of dying from any cause, all cause mortality. Melanoma skin cancer risk is higher from LED light exposure indoors than it is from sun exposure. The air quality indoors is often worse than outdoors, although in Dubai it's tough because
Yes,
neither
I
one is
know.
very good. You get
Yeah,
mold indoors and you
yeah,
get all the small particles outdoors.
yeah,
So the one thing though that people don't think about, sunlight is a nutrient and darkness is a nutrient. When you live indoors, you never get full spectrum light, which includes that warming infrared light because it's blocked by the windows because it's hot outside.
yes,
And your body needs that. It's a signal. And then you never get darkness because there's LEDs everywhere because the entire city glows the same frequencies that your mitochondria use to talk to each other, little photons that go back and forth at night that you can't see, but
right.
they're there. We can prove it.
Mhm,
So you've broken the connection between your body and the day and night cycles. And when you
mhm,
walk outside with traditional footwear or just barefoot, not that you're going to walk barefoot in the middle of summer, but you know what
mhm,
I'm saying, when you walk on the
yeah,
beach, you drop an electrical charge that builds up on your body that's associated with weak mitochondria and even with aging. So what are you going to do? Option one is find a little oasis outside of town and try to live there. Good luck with that. Um,
mhm,
the other option is, what if we re-envisioned our indoor environments so that they more replicated what's happening in the actual natural world? What if they did it well enough that your body didn't mind the difference? So I'm working with a large group in Dubai on designing indoor environments that are more biologically compatible with humans. It's not that being indoors is unhealthy, it's that the kind of indoors that we're building are unhealthy. And it's
yes,
sort of like saying, well, eating is unhealthy. Well, no, it's not. It depends what you're eating, right? It's the same thing with our indoor environments. So, how is the air filtered? What is the humidity? Is there mold? Are there endocrine disruptors because of the perfume and the fragrances that blocked your testosterone or caused you to lose your hair even though they smelled
right.
good? Could we
Yeah, yeah,
use sandalwood or some sort of natural fragrance that doesn't cause harm, that's maybe even good for you? The
Right.
science is all in. We can change the color of your light bulbs. There's all kinds of things. You just have to know that it's real and it matters. And when you're in an environment that's designed for you, you have more energy, you sleep better, you're less stressed, and you don't get wrinkles and you don't age as much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
since you're going to be indoors either way, you might as well be in the best indoors there is. We just designed it to be
Right.
beautiful instead of beautiful and functional.
Yeah. Right. Right. So, air purifiers, material that you're sleeping on that is natural rather than synthetic, all of that, mattresses that are a little bit better for you, and so on and so on, so it just makes sense when you think about it. So last questions I want to touch. I know that your time is precious, and I want to move on. Kind of, they could already have such a wealth of information in this episode. So because we touched on endocrine disruptors, I want to kind of quickly hear your opinion on microplastics. Is it as big a deal as what sort of the current conversation is making it up to be?
Microplastics are probably a bigger problem than people make it out to be right now. We're
Okay.
just learning what they actually do. And it's not just in humans. We have these giant patches of plastic in the ocean that are grinding against each other, making extremely small particles. And then they're making their way into our food supply. They're in plants, they're in fish, and they're in our bodies. And they're concentrated in our ovaries and our gonads and our testes and in our brains. And our cells are made out of tiny little droplets of fat. The whole membrane is little droplets of fat that holds everything together. Well, the body kind of thinks plastic is fat, so it puts it in there, but that plastic cannot express receptors. It cannot do what it's supposed to do. So we're slowly breaking not just our biology, but the biology of all life on Earth that incorporates these little particles. So I would call right now for an end to this ridiculous treatment of plastic. Just burn it. Just incinerate plastic. And people say, but air pollution we can fix. Microplastic, you can't fix it. There are ways to get it out of the body. There's a supplement called Brock Elite that turns on 3 different phases of elimination. And so there are actually studies showing that we can at least secrete it. And inside each of your cells, we've all heard of the mitochondria. They're the fancy parts.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is called the lysosome, which no one talks about. The lysosome inside the cell is like a little incinerator. Its job is to take trash and burn it and reuse the components. The problem is that microplastics and other toxins, they're like ashes that build up in a fireplace. Once it's full of ashes and little pieces of metal from trash you were burning, you can't burn anything because the fireplace is full. You got to take out the ashes. Well, what microplastics do is they clog up the furnaces in the cells. And that means something has to do it. So there's compounds like the one I just mentioned that can help the body to empty out the ashes in the lysosome so they can keep working, and then you can poop out the microparticles. And studies show that microplastics are excreted largely in feces, but you need to have the right supplements on board to do it.
So lymphatics, all of that, they don't do the job?
No, they'll help. But once that plastic is wedged in a lysosome, you got to get the lysosome to release it for it to go into the lymphatic system.
Right. And I think for like most things, it's exposure too. By reducing exposure, I think that helps a little bit. There's been recent studies that, especially in people that are suffering from infertility or struggling to get pregnant and things like that, by reducing, especially if there's no other reason for it, if it is microplastics, by reducing exposure has helped them to sort of improve their likelihood of conceiving. So, and I think this applies to everything else, be it mold, be it heavy metals, and so on. So, Dave, I want to sincerely thank you. This has been such a treat and such an honor. I really appreciate your time and your input. I think we're going to get a lot of comments and sort of people interested in the whole process of what we're building here. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the wisdom, the knowledge, everything that you've done over the decades that impacted my life and a lot of people that I know. Again, thank you for your time, for your being so generous with everything. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
You're very welcome. I look forward to it as well.
Thank you so much.